outside here in the middle of the night, Jack, up against the building, you know.
Wi-Fi or YouTube is on.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's on.
No, I-
It's 7.
7 o'clock. Good evening. Today is Monday, July 15th, 2024. I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Candy Perez.
William Pozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review.
Mr. Mayor, we need to add to the agenda tonight Board of Selectmen vacancies to review.
Okay. Where do we want to put that?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, on that agenda item, if I may throw some input, I would put that right before the approval of minutes, just so we can take care of that business at hand. We could take it as the next item. And I do have some agenda review items as well, if any of the
Okay.
board members. First one is down under new business. We have a discussion regarding the land use department permit fees. Unfortunately, our town planner is out sick today, so I'd like to table that item for tonight. But I would like to add a fire department SCBA grant that we found out on Friday. It was after the agenda was published. And if we could add that as item A, Anne Marie, our finance director, is here. She's going to give her finance director's report, and then I'm going to need her to talk a little bit about the SCBA grant that we received. And I believe our fire chief is here, so maybe get these guys out. They're free to stay, but maybe get them out a little earlier tonight. Would be the items that I need to either delete from the agenda or add to the agenda.
So two additions, one deletion. Anyone have anything else? Moving on to item number 4, Moving on to item number 4, the Board of Selectmen vacancy.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Linda Grappo for the seat vacated by Steve Sedlak.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous. Linda, congratulations.
We do,
Welcome
Mr.
back.
Mayor, we do have our town clerk here. He could swear in Linda right now, and she could grab a seat with us up at the Horseshoe if Linda so chooses.
I'm all set. I even have my name tag.
Oh,
Excellent.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Clay.
How are you?
Good to see you.
You ready?
I'm all set.
Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully perform your duties as a member of the Board of Selectmen to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do. Thank you.
And not to hog the microphone, but there is another opening in the second selectman seat that Steve Sedlak had to resign from, so I'd like to make a motion to appoint Paul Marino as second selectman.
I'll second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? 5, 1, 1. Moving on to item number 5, the approval of minutes of a regular meeting on July 1st.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Paul. Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstaining?
Abstain.
5601. Moving on to item number 6, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once per round. Please give your name and address. Who would like to speak? Is, Michael? Yep. Can't see if the light's on. Yep. Yeah, it's on.
Good evening, Captain Stephen Kosinski, 105 Standard Avenue, Winsted, Connecticut. First thing I want to point out is that under Section 308, it states that we operate under the Robert's Rules. The federal government, their legislature, Senate and Representatives House, as well as the Connecticut Senate and House, operate under the Mason Manual rules that is specifically designed for legislatures. There's only 4 states that operate under Robert's Rules of Order, and one of them happens to be Rhode Island, the other 3. Anyway, getting back also to the fact that we have seem to never had a parliamentary. We're supposed to. It's in 308. And that is, the parliamentary is not here to make the judgments. He's not here to make a ruling. He is there specifically as an advisor or a consultant if there's a conflict of interest or is a conflict with a particular item that is being discussed. And he has to be totally impartial. He is to be seated at the right hand of the president, or in this case, that would be you, Todd, the mayor. You usually get a chance to choose who the parliamentary is, and it's supposed to be impartial. And that is the case. So I did some work. I even went through my own, it's about that thick and really wide book on animal law, which is the IMO, International Maritime Organization, which all ships at sea, including all countries around the world, adhere to. So, I mean, I know the routine. I know how to go about looking for information. So I tried that. I'm not a lawyer, all right? So but I do happen to deal with traveling around the world and dealing with a lot of different countries and the laws that have to apply to their particulars. And that's the case there. So I do know how to find information out. With that said, I just want to address Selectman Perez and the fact that I kind of enjoyed the fact that you put your tail between your legs, booked it out of the room when I was speaking about you. Now, I got the floor.
Boy, when you
I
say
got
my
the
name,
floor.
keep yelling at me, that's always a good look.
No, let's get something
You
straight.
called
I
my
want-
name again. You
Yes,
said
I
my
did.
name again.
Yes, I did. And you called it first, and you suggested I step outside and have the lawyers handle it. Believe me, I'm not playing that game with you. I want you to sue me. I want you to. I have the right to bring every piece of evidence, audio, documentary, videotape, and I'll show you the rest of the state town how, I'm not even gonna say it, just the fact that you you're laughing.
Please address the rest of the board, not the
I'm
single.
sorry. So with that case, I'll leave it at that. If she wants to sue me, fine. I'm not gonna sue her. I wanna be the defendant, all right? So that's the case there.
Thank you, sir. Who else would wish to speak? Jack?
Thank you, Jack Bork, 78 Crown Street. For years, we've wondered, how do we get information to people to vote on the town meeting, to go to the town meeting, to vote on the budget? There's no newspaper. Facebook does not work because I have wonderful friends who do not participate in Facebook. They never know what's going on because they don't like it. Neither do I most of the time. I only visit when I have to. There is no set way to reach everybody, except. So, been thinking about this over the last, when we look at the town meeting and the number of people who actually attend the town meeting and vote in the referendum. It's so small, there's something missing. What's missing is the communication that gets to them. So, there is an organization in this town that has the email for almost every parent. And when something happens in the school system, they send out a broadcast message and it reaches everybody. Now, those parents have put their name in and said it's okay to do that. So how do we do it? How do you guys do it? You could send out a letter to every single person in this town and say, if you would like information, give us your email or your text number, and we will get information to you on a regular basis. Now, you can send that out to everybody who has an address in town, and that works. It's expensive, but it works. It's the one way to reach everybody. But there's another way too. You could also send a message in a tax bill, because everybody gets a tax bill. But not everybody gets the initial tax bill, because some tax bills are sent to banks or insurance companies or to holding companies, so not everybody gets it. So you could separate who gets the actual tax bill in their home and who gets the tax bill at a bank or someplace else. And those people could get a separate message. It could be a message that says, would you like to sign up for our email blast? Now, the one that you can sign up for through the website, I'm on that. And that message that comes out, it's not always clear, it's not always up to date, and it's sometimes hard to really figure out, well, there's a whole bunch of meetings here, and I can read the agendas, I can read the maybe not only the agendas, but the minutes. What I think we needed to do, and I wish we had done this years ago, is to get a message to everybody to say, give us your email. Let us send you an email blast when there is information about a town meeting, a budget, something that you really need to know about that affects how you participate in this town. And you can do that. It costs a little bit of money, and it also costs somebody's time and effort to put the message out. Now, what I did is I created a little bit of a message that you could possibly use as an example to send in with the taxes. One of the things you have to be careful with in this is that you also assure everyone that their information, their email, is not being given to anybody else. And so you have to provide that kind of a notice that we will not give out your email, we will not give out your phone number to anybody else. But you can do that. Legally, you can do that. The real focus here is, how do we reach people who, number one, live in this town and pay taxes, whether it's real estate, personal property, car tax. And number two, how do we keep it informative and active? You're not going to get it in Facebook. You put a Facebook message in the other day, and by 2 days, well, maybe 2 hours later, there was a lost cat a boat up at the lake that was pushing it down, and that message eventually gets lost, because Facebook works that way. Every time there's a new message, everything else gets pushed down. And so if you want to keep people active and involved in this town, and get the message out that we have a referendum, we have a town meeting, you gotta get it to them personally. I'm gonna pass out this, you can do whatever you want with it. There's a wastebasket someplace over there, you throw it there, you can use it as a model. But over the years, there's no perfect way to reach all of the residents in this town. But there are ways that you can reach most of them. And it's certainly better than the methodologies that we're now using. So all I'm here to suggest is take some action. If you really want more people to participate, don't rely just on social media, because it doesn't work. There are too many good people who don't pay attention to anything on social media, who are interested in this town, who want things to happen, who would vote in this town. I mean, after the last vote, I had friends of mine who said, I didn't even know it was happening. Was it my fault that I didn't tell them? I think it was all of our fault. So I'm gonna pass this out. As I said, there's a wastebasket there if that's what you think is necessary. If not, maybe you can use it as a message to put out into tax bills. It could be water and sewer tax bills, it could be real estate tax bills, it could be personal property tax bills. Yeah, it will cost a little bit more money, but the end result is we get people participating.
Thank you, Jack. Does Winston Dwyer still come out?
Yes, it does. Mr. Mayor, under my town manager report, I'm gonna talk about communication, so I can address what Mr. Ports said with a few ideas that are starting to percolate.
Anyone else wish to speak? Come on up.
Hello, Jill Zitney, 159 Pratt Street. I just wanted to say it was so nice to see more businesses expand this past couple of weeks. We went to the new ice cream shop that opened next to Mama Fo, and apparently we were speaking to him, and he's got that whole block of stores now expanding. And I know he was very excited to see more development, and so I just wanted to share that with people who don't come to meetings or aren't able to get around. It was nice that the Friends of Winsted sent that newsletter out about all the ice cream places, so we were able to go there. So I just wanted to say I'm encouraged by the continued development, and hopefully things will go forward. We'll be able to do some more of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, moving on to item number 7, Town Manager's Report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, in no particular order. I do want to first address a comment that was brought under public input about communication. In fact, the last 2 weeks, I spent a lot of the time thinking about the way the town does communicate with its residents. And we have done a bad job in the past in engaging our citizens to come out and weigh in on particular items, and there is no right answer. But a few things that we are looking to unroll immediately. The first one being is when you get your tax bill, there will be an additional piece of paper. It's really inexpensive to mail a piece of paper when you're already mailing an envelope. It'll be a front and back. On the back, it'll be a lot of fun facts about Winstead and Winchester, but it's also going to inform people how to sign up on our current online website of Staying Informed. Is one of the areas where we want to engage as many email addresses as we can. We want to gather as many email addresses as we can, and we want to make it as simple as possible for people to understand how to actually get onto our website and stay informed. Now, I will admit that our website does need to be updated, and that's something that we are looking at. I don't have anything right now to lay out in front of all of you, but we do need to update our website. We need to make it more fun. We need to make it more responsive. We need to make it more interactive so people spend half the time trying to find what they're trying to find and just get to what they're looking for. The other item that we're looking at is Everbridge. Currently, the state of Connecticut buys every municipality a very watered-down version of Everbridge. And what Everbridge is used is if there's a catastrophic event about to happen, we can then use Everbridge and push out to anybody that signed up under 211 that something bad's about to really happen. Well, for a small amount of money, and we have to engage Everbridge for that price, we can then turn Everbridge into a way of communicating with our residents. Now, there's two ways to communicate with residents. There's either email or text. Now, if you've read anything recently, most people look at emails and just say goodbye. But text message, they seem to read within seconds, and they respond to those text messages and they see it. So if we do unlock this Everbridge software and the town decides to go forward with it, we will need a campaign to get as many residents to, register themselves on the 211. But the interesting and the fun thing about Everbridge is we don't have to worry about just catastrophic events, but if we were closing down a particular area of town because of road maintenance or a spill, we can geofence a particular area and just target those particular residents in that area to say, hey, this particular roadway is going to be closed. Or, tragic events are happening at one of our school systems, which I hope they never happen, but we can lock down particular areas and alert people in certain areas that these are areas that you should be avoiding. Now, a lot of that stuff, yes, I agree, you probably want to push out to the masses, but we do need to do a better job at communicating with our residents. I agree with that, and it's something that my office is really taking on over the last 7 to 10 days of what are the best ways to communicate, what can we do more, and what's the right answer. We don't have any of it yet, but I can tell you that we are working on better ways of communicating with our residents and allowing them to know what exactly is going on in town. Whether it's as simple as a public hearing tomorrow night on our budget, that a vote's coming up 2 weeks after that, or that a road is closing, or anything in general, that there's a fair going on this weekend or anything like that. But we do need to do a better job at communicating. Software has definitely advanced itself to a point where it's inexpensive, not cheap, but inexpensive, and we should be looking to unlock it. And I hope in the short future that I can come before the Board of Selectmen and see what you all think of different ways that we can push out communication. Moving on, I know the police union seems to be a little hotbed with overtime. We are working on an MOU to address the overtime issues. We had one officer just last week complete training. He's now an FTO. So he's field training for the next 800 hours, maybe 600 hours, but long story short, we have a new officer out in FTO. We have a certified officer that will be joining us from Cheshire in August, and then we also have 2 new recruits that were just sworn in last week that are off to the academy, and we also have a sergeant that came over from Waterbury who officially started as well this week. So with all that said, when you add everyone at the academy coming out of the academy, we are now fully staffed. I put that with a big asterisk of the police department. Unfortunately, it's going to take 6 to 8 months to really see that full staff because we have training and FTO, but we're moving in the right direction with the police department. Moving on, I met with Representative Case and resident Rita to discuss the annual addiction run she does every year. More on that a little bit later, but the town may need to partner up with the park that they use it in. But look for that addiction run. Obviously, Labor Day weekend, that's still going to go on. On 4th of July weekend, I had the chance to go up to the Highland Lake Watershed Association. Man, 4th of July weekend, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and there's 150 people in that room. It was great attendance. I'm like, all right, who's going to come on a Saturday? But great question and answer. I was glad to be there. I got to introduce myself. The chief of police was there. Candy chairs it. She did a wonderful job. Selectman Perez, excuse me, chairs it. Just a great group of people that are really interested in the town. So I had a lot of fun. We met about the wayfinding project. I don't know if you all remember what that was. We got a grant for wayfinding, signs that we're going to put on Main Street. Met with the 2 gentlemen that were hired by the town. We're finalizing the plans. We have to engage DOT because obviously we're putting signs on Main Street, which they own. So we're moving that project along, and we hope to see those signs sooner rather than later, but the signs look really, really good. Mapping. It's just a matter of what we're going to place on the map, how big we want these signs, and now it's at the point where we get to engage the DOT because they obviously have final sign-off on it because we're putting the sign on their property. An interesting conversation. The bigwigs from Eversource came in to discuss the rates. They are putting it all on regulatory business of why these fees are jumping up. They would love to provide lower rates for everybody, and it's all the regulatory process of why monthly fees are continuing to escalate. Attended the COG meeting. During that COG meeting, if you hadn't heard, and I say this publicly because I want you all to be aware, COVID's back. Got COVID last week. I did test negative this morning. I had a little mild, but be cautious. I read a lot once you come down with COVID, but definitely, be conscious of COVID. There's a summer surge going on, but attended the COG meeting. It was well attended, dealing with roads and trash issues and everything like that, and no real action was taken at the COG meeting, but it was a great meeting. As you know, the budget failed, so we obviously had to work quickly. We came back with $124,000 in efficiencies. I think Selectman Marino said it best. These were efficiencies brought forward by our department heads that this board unanimously accepted on the $124K. Little Red Barn, some things I did get to unfortunately miss because of COVID. We recognized their 5 years in business. We had the mayor there, we had former town manager Geiger and the EDC chair there as well, and we recognized them with a plaque for being here for 5 years. We met about the EV charging grant. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to engage that EV charging grant. It just doesn't allow us enough money to unlock that grant. We'd be going back to the taxpayers, asking them. So what we're looking at doing is possibly teaming up with a local business or a developer here in town and passing that grant along to them and hoping that they can fund the additional money that's needed to add a couple more EV charging stations in town. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I have a comment.
Sure.
The communications.
Yes.
On the town website, Troy, your phone, the town website, there is a sign up,
Yes, there is.
and you do get information. So it's like Everbridge sounds like it's the same thing, other than it's a text as well. But I always get any communication. However, I don't know if it's utilized to its potential. With the budget coming up, I haven't seen anything about the budget. Even the new budget I haven't gotten any alerts from the town website. I get minutes and agendas, but I don't see anything about the budget.
Which is interesting, and
Yeah.
that's something, so the budget's up there, but you're not receiving the update on it, which
Correct. Or the notice of a meeting tomorrow night. But
a lot of it, and this is one of the things we're gonna look at tomorrow, is when you went in and registered yourself, it gave you several options of what you wanted to opt in for. So I guess what I'm saying publicly now is maybe go back, not just to you, but to our audience outside, is go back in, re-register your email address, and maybe pick more options. Because I know somebody did receive, when we put the budget flyer up, that, we added a whole page, we put the budget out there, we put the town meeting out there, people were receiving, but not a lot of people. So there's some disconnect of why some people are receiving it and some people aren't. Now, it's not something that we're doing internally here, it's something that's provided by our website providers, that if you've checked that box, if we add something, it automatically pushes out to you. We're not actually pushing the email out anywhere from here. It's the website provider that's doing it. So there is a disconnect there of why, you're a great example, why you're not receiving it. And you should.
absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
How would the website provider know what to send out? In other words, so tomorrow night's meeting would be wonderful if we could have hundreds of people there rather than 20,
Yeah.
right? So the website provider, do they know that they should be pushing that information out to anyone that's signed up for that, or is that not happening?
So it's all done in the backspace of the website. So when a particular individual went on to get updated, or I forgot what the exact terminology was on our website, a box then, a big screen pops up, and there's a laundry list of items that you can check. Depending on what you checked or did not check is why the email will either go or not go to that particular email address.
Suppose I signed up, and I don't know what's there, but suppose I signed up for town news.
Yep.
Right.
Then you should be receiving it.
I should be receiving notice that that meeting's happening tomorrow night?
Correct, correct.
So that is happening then
That
if
is
someone
happening,
signs up for
yes.
it? Okay.
If you signed up for town news. I think, and one of the things that we're going to do or attempt to do tomorrow is we want to create a video to show people how to get updated and stay informed of stuff that's going on. A short, quirky video, can't be long, but at least helping some people navigate the process of signing themselves up to get the information. But I think ultimately where a lot of why the communication's not hitting out is when the person initially signed up, they checked some boxes, and I think Todd's checking right now, you could see there's a whole lot. I mean, you can go, it's hard, and there's probably, if I were to guess, 60 different entities. Then you have minutes and agendas, bids and RFPs, other documents, news and updates, and meetings and events. So ultimately, if you really want to be informed of everything going on in town, I would suggest checking every single box. And then you definitely get everything. So it's the back end of the website that's pushing out the information if the checkbox was made for that. So we are adding, I can tell you, when we add, under news, we put this under news, we put the budget under news, but it was under Board of Selectmen. And if a particular individual didn't sign up Board of Selectmen, they said, agendas in minutes, great. And then scan over and see that there's a news and whatever it was called, news and updates. If that box wasn't checked, then the email wasn't sent.
Well, one of the ways to fix that is just have a default. When you sign up, you're defaulted to receive town news. You can check your agendas and minutes for different boards and commissions, but the town news should just be an automatic default. You signed up for it.
So I've been to the website thousands of times. Now typically when I go to the town website, I'm there looking for something specific, and I just went to the landing page, and
Keep going, I know what you're gonna say.
I'm gonna say, gosh, I never knew I could sign up for information, and I've been there thousands of times.
Yep.
So we need to have something at the top of the landing page, a banner or directions, or hey, something to direct you there, because again, if I'm here looking for specific information, I don't ever get to that spot.
Yep.
The old website used to have it up in the upper left corner with the whole thing, sign up for news. But then when it switched to this new website, it dropped a lot of things.
Placed way at the bottom.
Yeah, I didn't even know we could sign up till tonight. How about that?
Get notifications on the bottom right.
When I came on the board, and I used my Selectmen email, I signed up for everything. I'm still waiting to receive something. I received nothing. And I signed up for everything with my Selectmen email.
It's a heavy spam filter. No, it's an interesting one. Do me a favor, if you have a chance. Go in tonight, tomorrow, re-sign up again.
Okay.
Select everything again.
Yep.
Just because you signed up once, you can go back in and enter your email address and sign back up for as much or as little as you want. But I want to look into that. So why you're not?
Is it possibly blocked to the town web email addresses?
No, because I get
Okay.
one of the fun things
Well,
I
that's
get
what I
to
was just
see
gonna ask,
is
because ever since I've been selectman, I haven't get any minutes or agendas or anything for all the ones I signed up for. So I was wondering if that had anything to do it, and then I went directly to the department heads to put me on the list,
Yeah.
and I still don't get them. Once in a while, I'll get one. Very rarely,
Do they go to spam?
not that I know of.
No.
you would get a notification with the spam if it went to quarantine, and then you'd have the ability to release it if you wanted to or not release it. So
Not to beat this horse to death, but I think it speaks to the functionality of the website.
Yep.
That since we've had it, it really hasn't functioned well at all.
I agree.
And
That one was better.
so I think the sooner you can ask Alexa and other people to work on a website platform that works, the better off we would all be.
agreed.
Any other questions? You all set?
Yeah.
Moving on to item number 8, Finance Director's Report.
That was included tonight.
Give me 1 second. Okay. Good evening. These are the results, very preliminary, just want to keep that in mind, for June 30th, 2024. That is the full year of fiscal '24, so we are 100% through the fiscal year. Just as a reminder, I believe that it's been spoken of on more than one occasion, that only the real estate tax bills will be mailed this month with an August 1st due date. Once we have a budget, an additional amount due on the first installment will be added to the second installment amount due January 1. So any true up on the first bill will be included with your second installment. Once we also have a budget, you will receive bills for personal property and motor vehicle. So year-to-date revenues, current property taxes, $26,629,268, which is 100.18% of our budget. That's compared to our prior year of $25,226,258, which was 98.9%. Our motor vehicle supplemental revenue, $258,197, which is 129.1% of the budget. Past due taxes year to date, $234,461, which is 78.15 of our budget, and that is in comparison to $364,310 in the prior year, which was 121.44%. Our total revenues year to date, $39,758,897, which is 100.32%. That's in comparison to $36,811,874, which was 102.1% of budget. Total year-to-date expenditures with remaining encumbrances is $39,114,437, which is 98.54%. That is compared to $36,049,224, which was 100.03% for the same period. Our municipal aid received in June is the current year LoCIP grant, which is no longer a reimbursement grant. We received that upfront, $126,662, and our final installment of the Pequot money of $16,491. Projected cash flow as of June 30th is just over $15.5 million. Of that, 13.7 is invested. $451,070 in our Northwest Community Bank sweep, $2,440,624 in the State Investment Fund, and $10,843,008 in the Northwest Community Bank money market. Our June 2024 capital expenditures, just a little over $35,500 in annual road repairs, $119,396 on Case Avenue, $1,325 for Tetros Pond Dam, $5,032 for our town clerk office renovations, $46,661 for the digital radio upgrade, $10,500 for the Communities Challenge, the walking tour panels that the town manager mentioned, and $5,980 for the Deep Trails grant for the Mad River. Questions?
Anyone from the board have a question?
Yeah, the audit, is that posted yet?
I do not, they just sent me the electronic copies on Friday, Wednesday, I think, but I was out most of Thursday, Friday. So I have not received the bound copies, but I do have the electronic copies that we can get up on the website.
Or at least to the board to start.
I just got them
Yeah, okay. Let's check.
last week.
Other questions? Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, correspondence.
What, did we miss the,
Not yet.
You're going to new business, it's
Okay.
coming.
okay.
Shortly. Seeing no correspondence, moving on to unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. Moving on to new business.
So this is our added agenda item. I'm sorry, I stepped on you for a second. You want to announce it?
Go right ahead.
So I'm kind of excited, but I'm gonna allow the gentleman that did all the hard work announce what we got. So, Mr. Fire Chief Jamie, please.
Good evening. So as you know, the Assistance for Firefighter grants are very competitive. This is the second one we've received in the recent years. The first one was radios for fire and EMS. That was, and then Norfolk, of course, because that was a regional grant. That one totaled $714,000. And this is another regional grant for self-contained breathing apparatus for Winston and Norfolk as well, for $561,650. So it's a lot of work to put in these grants, but in the end, the town benefits greatly, and we do as the fire service, and our neighboring town in Norfolk as well. So the portion for us, you know, in this grant, so I put in the grant, it was $805,000. So our air packs, the prices that we put in were list price at $14,595. FEMA is giving us $10,000, so we have to negotiate with the vendors to, you know, get the price, but that we'll work on later. So our portion of the grant is $347,533 from federal shares, which we need to come up with $18,291.25. And then Norfolk's is the rest, which is $186,033. They'll work on that. So what we need to do is approve me to sign the grant, because I have 30 days, and unfortunately, we moved it up for today, because next time we have a meeting, I'll be on vacation. And Anne Marie has the transfer, I think everyone got the.
They haven't got it yet, but I have it.
I'm sorry. But they
But
will.
thank you, Jamie. Jamie did a great job, but I'm also going to add something that's very important that Jamie brought up to me when we were talking about this grant. I think it was late last week or even today, that this appropriation of $347,000 was going to be in our 26 budget. We needed to replace these SCBA's. So with this grant, you know, there's just a timeline on these SCBA's, and you got to replace it. So this grant is a tremendous savings to our taxpayers, that we were able to unlock this additional funding, in that something we have to fund is now being funded by this particular grant. So kudos to you and all the hard work that you put into it. But before us tonight, and why we had to take action on it tonight, is we have 30 days to respond. Our fire chief won't be here at our following meeting, so we needed an $18,000, and I'm gonna pass those along, $18,291.25, which would be our match to unlock the $347,533.75. Working with our finance director today, she's looking at the accounts just from the fire department. We have, and this would be the 24 budget. Keeping in mind, it's not the new budget, it's the 24 budget that expired on June 30th. We applied for the grant in the 24 fiscal budget. $17,000 of labor, skilled, and professional salaries, $17,000, and just under $1,300 in contracted services would give us just over that $18,000 of our match to unlock the $354,000.
And if I may add, the reason why there's the money left in labor, skilled, and professional salaries is because our full-time firefighter was injured and didn't return to work, so we had to go through the process of rehiring, so that's why that number is there.
So we need a motion to accept the grant and then the transfer.
I make a motion to accept the grant.
Second?
Is that what we did?
And for Jamie to sign,
Okay.
sign the grant, I guess accepting and to have
Accepting
Jamie.
and for the
Is it all
chief
one?
to sign the grant.
Yeah, just dot the i's, I think, you know, just so he can sign his name.
So Bill's got the motion. Paul's
Second.
got the second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Oh, Troy, you in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous? And now the fund transfer.
I move that we move $17,000 from labor, skilled, and professional salaries, and $1,291.25 from contracted services to the capital fund in the total of $18,291.25.
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for all your hard work.
Fire Chief, thanks again, and this is the best news I got on Friday when, you know, I was a little under the weather. It cheered me up, so thank you. And thanks to Anne Marie for finding the money so quickly today, because we needed to get this done.
Moving on to item B, road projects update. Tim?
We do have our Public Works Director here tonight. I know road seems to be a hotbed topic, and Mr. Rollins is here tonight to give us the latest of where we stand on roads and where we've been on roads and answer any particular questions you all may have. He's hiding it from me.
Wasn't anticipating Linda being here, so. For the record, Jim Rollins, Director of Public Works. So, I got word that you wanted this update on Thursday afternoon, so I, got busy on it right away. Didn't have time to dot the i's, cross the t's, thus you'll see it's labeled draft. The content is right, but I didn't want to put it on the website until I cleaned that up a little bit. So I brought the paper copies in because it's much easier for you to follow if we can go through it together. So the comments in red, as we've done, this is probably like the 5th iteration of this format, is the most recent comments, most up-to-date comments and updates are in the red font. So I'll just go through this. And I also have added over time, this initially started off as just the infrastructure, the bond report. And then questions always came up about other stuff, so I just added it.
Jim, as we go through, if we could, as we go through each one of the projects, can you just let us know whether it's part of the bond or it's part of normal budget?
Yeah, I think they're labeled this as such, but
I was just
I'll
looking
do
to
it.
see if that was there somewhere.
Yeah,
so.
well, I'll explain it as we go, and then I can clean that up again for the final version. Anyway, so this first group of projects that I'm gonna talk about, there's 5 of them. These are all in the bond, and it's Case Avenue.
Significant bonds, he's got them labeled.
Okay. These are all part of the bond, Jim?
These first few, yep, are all part of the bond. It's the Case Avenue, reconstruction project, and that is substantially complete. Really about the only little thing left isn't really related to our work. Eversource just left a bad valve cover, and it's just got a rough section, a rough spot in an intersection, so that's up to them to fix. But for all practical purposes, that part of the project is done. Case Avenue Bridge, again, substantially complete. There's the only thing left, they did touch up some concrete and some paving that we weren't happy with. And right now, there's only 2 outstanding issues of substance. One is the bridge rail paint. There's some questions as to whether or not we need to do something different to that. That's been a question since this project started, and we just haven't figured out who has to be happy with it. Anyway, and then we've got a little bit of a surface issue on one of the sidewalks. Somewhere between 1 and 3 millimeters of the surface, roughly a 1/16 to 3/16, maybe as much as a 1/4 of an inch deep in places. We're seeing some pitting. We took some core samples, sent them out to be analyzed, and it just seems like we got some chloride infiltration from the road salts. Interestingly enough, it's only the section that picks up plow spill off the state road. The stuff picking up the salt that we use, that side didn't. Whether it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. We're still looking into the solutions. Fortunately, it's not a structural issue, it's just a surface condition issue, but before I signed on the dotted line and received the work, we want to make sure we go through and determine if we need to do anything and what we need to do. The Whiting Street project is substantially complete. The only thing left is when we did this road, the Whiting Mills had a roof drain that ran across the road and then, into a drainage system on the other side of the road. And it was in poor shape. We encouraged them to put a new pipe into a new storm drain, which they did, but they didn't discontinue the old one because it was still in use by the time we paved. So that old one has actually had a small failure in it. The next time we have a contractor in to pump grout for a project, we're gonna pump it into that and resolve that problem and then patch the hole. Taylor
Jim,
Brook.
I just have a quick question. On, going back to Case Avenue and then on Whiting Street, how much did we pave? What was the distance that we paved on Case and Whiting Street? Do you know?
Just don't quote me on this, but I wanna say Case Avenue was about 750 feet. Whiting Street was about double that.
Okay, thank you.
Taylor Brook Culvert, that project is substantially complete. There still is an easement issue. DEP and I have different opinions on what they're asking, so that's just gonna be an ongoing argument until it's resolved. The Marshall Street project, that was, how long's Marshall Street? It's gotta be 2 miles, close to 2 miles. Mile and a half, 2 miles. That road was reclaimed and paved last year. We still have a little bit of work on the shoulders to do, a little bit of curbing, that kind of stuff. Along with that project, we were supposed to do Old Colebrook Road and Indian Meadow Drive, but we got too late in the season to pull it off. So those are coming up. But Marshall Street, other than a little bit of, punch list stuff, is pretty dialed in.
Also bond?
Yep. Yep. The next section, these are projects that are currently active, and these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are also all bond projects. So part of the Marshall Street project is Old Colebrook Road and Indian Meadow Drive. The plan is to mill those down and repave them. Public Works has done the drainage. We are waiting to do a culvert replacement on Old Colebrook Road, and the money for that is actually in the capital improvement budget that has yet to be passed. So we're a little bit held up on that. And then I also need to get a wetlands permit, which I hope to have after Wednesday night's meeting. Elm Street, bids have been received. The winning bidder was Richards Corporation, 1.54 million, and that project officially started, a couple of days ago and is expected to finish in October. I don't know the length off the top of my head. Sorry. I'll make sure I add that. That's a good statistic. Elm Street, Hubbard Street. Hubbard Street is also went out to bid, and that was about 1.13 million, and that project was also won by Richards Corporation out of Terryville. And that started a couple of days ago as well, and is expected to finish in October. Now, in here, you'll see that it's a year ahead of schedule. We initially were waiting for Eversource to replace all their gas lines on that road, and they were supposed to do it last year. And then they came to us at the end of the year and said, we put it off for 5 years, and that road can't wait 5 years, so we pulled the trigger. For what it's worth, our requirement is if they do work in our roads, they've got to mill and pave curb to curb. So our new road will unfortunately get, dug up again, but they do have to repave it. And again, a good piece of information for you as well as the public is we work with all the utilities, water, sewer, gas, Frontier, all of them. And we all have we all share our 5-year outlook so that everybody's trying to avoid redigging things. And we went through and did our due diligence and we planned around them, but they just had a change for whatever reason.
Yeah, I was actually gonna share that, Jim. It's not some certain roads, it's just not mill and pave and do the drainage. There is utilities under there, and some of those utilities are our utilities. So we have to be careful, and Jim's been really good with the water and sewer when it comes to the utilities in town to do the job.
That's a little bit better point than I made. We've got to be,
We have to be careful, it's not just go in there and do it.
and we do try to time
Yes,
our road work with whatever, the water and sewer department has to do so that we
Yep.
can get the best value and, provide, create the least amount of disturbance to the public. But anyway,
And I think it's important to touch on what both of you said, is that if you're just gonna go mill and pave a road and you're dealing with a 100-year-old clay pipe and you throw that miller on a 100-year-old clay pipe, guess what's gonna happen to that clay pipe?
not gonna be very good.
You're gonna be fixing that clay pipe because now you've absolutely crushed what's underneath it. So it's important that you move quickly but systematically, because if you're gonna throw that miller on the road and there's a 100-year-old clay pipe, I've seen it firsthand, that 100-year-old clay pipe is crushing underneath.
we've actually seen it with 50-year-old water pipes.
Even worse.
So, again, you try to minimize those things. It will happen, and then the public will lose their mind when they see you, fixing something under a brand-new road, but there's just certain things you can't avoid. Next on the list is Upland Road. Most people have probably never even driven on Upland Road. It's down at that end of the, end of town, and it kind of comes down, turns a corner right along Route 44, and it just had this failed retaining wall that was overgrown with weeds, vegetation. It's a traveling hazard, and so Public Works actually did this with our forces. We reconstructed that bank. It's all, vegetated and seeded. There's gonna be a Welcome to Winston sign being put in soon. This month, we'll be doing the final paving and curbing, and then the guide rails will be a little bit later. And then come fall, we'll be doing some plantings. We're looking at a couple of different options. Haven't determined it exactly, but I'm really leaning towards planting that whole thing with mountain laurel, doing some this year, doing a little bit each year, and then eventually just having a big, huge laurel patch as you come into the Laurel City. So we'll see what we end up with. That all depends on cost. Next is Hannafin Road. The drainage work on Hannafin Road was done by the Public Works crew. We did hire a vendor to do all of the vegetation clearing so that when they come in to reclaim, they don't have tree branches hitting their dump trucks and sticks and branches getting stuck in the pavement, which does happen, believe it or not. The reclaiming of that road is scheduled to start the week of July 22nd, and then they'll follow up shortly after that with fine grading and paving. Now,
You know what the distance is again? I only ask
That's-
because one of the questions we get
yeah,
constantly is, what's
Yeah.
going on? What are we doing with these roads? So
That's
it'd be
gotta-
great to have some of
that's
this
gotta be close to a mile.
mile.
We're not doing the first 500 or 600 feet because that's gonna be done as part of the culvert. So we're just doing from just beyond the culvert all the way to the Colebrook line.
What was the distance on Upland, Jim?
Oh, that's a very short road. Call it 300 feet, 400 feet.
Thank you.
That was, yeah, so Hannafin Road, yeah, that's a big, long one. Now, projects that are just in the engineering phase, and again, all of these are still bond projects. Oakdale Avenue, there's a corrugated metal pipe that has worn out, the bottom's rotted. Stormwater comes flying down that hill because it's so steep, and it scours out under the pipe, causes sinkholes. Very deep pipe, so it's kind of cost prohibitive to just dig it up and replace it. We are meeting with a second vendor. We met with one last year that does pipe lining. That's where there's different ways of doing it, but they will send a sleeve up through that existing pipe and fill the inside of the pipe, and then they go in and they grout all the empty space and fills up the voids. Significantly less costly and really pretty darn effective. So we're meeting with a second vendor on that in the next couple of weeks. The Highland Lake Drainage Project, again, just like I said last time, this project is stuck in engineering purgatory. Everybody's limited bandwidth just impacts it. About the only progress we made on that wasn't even really the best forward progress, but at the bottom of Forest Avenue, we replaced the pipe that runs from Wakefield Boulevard down to the lake, roughly 100 feet. The intention was to put a hydrodynamic separator in to, capture some of the sediment and, work on water quality. And engineering that went behind it determined that we weren't gonna be able to pull that off. There wasn't enough, just wasn't enough space. There wasn't, with the volume of water to the amount of head that we were able to put on that separator, it wasn't gonna handle the water. So we're gonna add deep sumps, where we can, and we're actually looking at maybe sending that water north to an area that we can put a separator. But for now, we just had to be happy getting a new pipe in, and next step will be some deeper basins.
What is the extent of that project? Is that supposed to be drainage around the entire lake?
No,
When you say Highland Lake drainage, what is the project?
There was 5 locations. One was coming down Mountain Road towards the south end of the lake and going to the right and the left to the first opportunity to send that storm water. That was project 1.
This is a capital budget, this isn't the bond project.
That's not bond? I thought that
Well,
was
we
in the bond.
haven't issued the bond for Highland Lake drainage yet.
Okay, then it's capital.
You had like a couple hundred,
Fair enough.
300,000 in capital.
So, so that was one of the projects. Then another one was, so let me back up just a little bit to help you understand the original kind of intent of this first part of the Highland Lake drainage. Yes, we need drainage all the way around Highland Lake. There's nobody that's gonna deny that. The problem with drainage around Highland Lake is there's no room for it. And anybody that owns waterfront, that water has to go to the waterfront. Nobody wants, a new drain put in, and the ones they have, they've usually developed right over them. They don't want that torn up, or at great expense to the town doing it. So we've gotta come up with, something, because we've got to address it. So this is kind of a pilot program to show several different options of treating that water, as well as managing storm drains that we can use to say, hey, you live at the lake, we have a drainage problem in this area. We need to try to treat this water to make it cleaner as it goes into the lake. What we're proposing, in front of your house or your house is this, which you can see an example of over here, and it will help people understand. And the west side has more areas where we think we can do these little demonstration sites, so people know what they're gonna be getting, and they're not scared of it, or they can, understand, what it's doing. So it's the beginnings of what we're gonna have to do. And the reason we're doing this is I've had firsthand experience where you propose anything, any kind of drainage improvements, and you're met with just the most insane amount of resistance. So, okay, you can have your resistance, I'll go fix something else. Meanwhile, the lake doesn't get any cleaner and the road doesn't get any better. But that's why it just gets pushed back. There's too much pushback, so it gets pushed back to the list. It's just the way it's evolved. And then there was, at the bottom of Suckerbrook Road, there was a space. At the bottom of Forest Avenue, there was an area. And there was another one over, I wanna say it was near Vaughn's Lane, but don't quote me on that one off the top of my head. And then, those are the ones we were intending, not to say some of the other stuff. We've got several other areas. If you look the next bullet down, work this season. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4 areas that we want to attack and put under drains and deeper basins, and try to do something to get the water off the road, try not to break the bank with really expensive things, but they're just simple little ones we can do. Get the water off the road and stop putting these ungodly amounts of salt on the road, which ends up in the lake. We have to go up there and break it up with the grader, which beats up the road even more. So these are like, they're all interconnected, and which ones get done is always a matter of.
So the iceberg in front of 819 that forms every year, is that the one you're talking about? Is that on the list?
819, yes, that's the 800-ish East
Gotcha.
Wakefield section, yep. And then there's a few more. The other ones are on, 2 on the east side, 2 on the west side, and then 1 over by Holland Beach. So really what's holding up those, handful of projects is me finding the time to just fill out the wetlands permits and get them in front of the commission, get our permits and go. Because just like everybody else, we gotta do our due diligence in doing things properly. So the next two, Wakefield Boulevard Phase 1 and 2, these are part of the Highland Lake drainage, areas. And really nothing's going on with that because of, our engineering purgatory. The Highland Lake retrofit program, do have a little bit of good news on that one. You guys, Board of Selectmen just recently authorized using the NIP money to fund this first step. And then as soon as the budget passes, we're ready to sign an agreement with an asset management software, which is really the beginnings of doing this, this properly. And then we'll start populating the data once we get trained on the software. And, we just got word that it's likely that Winchester is gonna become an MS4 community, which is a pretty challenging drainage and stormwater quality monitoring program. And we would not be able to pull it off without this asset management. So, we're trying to not be as far behind on that as we could be. The White Street Bridge and the Grantville Road Bridge, we're in the same exact state we were in with the last time I updated you. Nothing new on the projects. DOT has really, they get to a certain point and it just goes through their engineering behind the scenes. You don't see much, and then there'll be some action probably in a few months. So as new things happen with this, I don't have the starting dates that they're anticipating. I know Grantville's coming up. I think that one's after White Street, and we have to hurry to get Wani Road finished because the bridge, Grantville Bridge is going to be in the summer of '26. So we got to do Wani Road before that because that's going to be part of their detour.
And these two bridges are not bond, right? They came from different fundings?
So I'm gonna have to just double check on that, but I wanna say we anticipated, I guess it doesn't really matter because in the end, the federal local bridge program, which is the program that we use for bridges that are over a 20-foot span, they typically fund 80% of a project, town picks up the other 20%. When they got a bunch of the money from the Infrastructure Act, rather than all the extra work that goes into dealing with two agencies, they just said, we're gonna run the whole show and we're gonna pay for the whole show. They do give us our input, so we're part of the design, but they are paying for the whole thing. So whether we had it in the bond or in the capital, we'll have some incidental costs to it, just like we did with Case Avenue Bridge. Rather than, a few $100,000, it was a few tens of thousands. But that's a really.
So when we bonded for that, we bonded for the 20%?
At least, we did for the Case Avenue Bridge. I really don't recall. I'll have to go and list these, the next draft, which ones are bond and which ones aren't. When it gets to the website, I'll try to have, distances and programs.
That's nice, so we're gonna get that 20% back.
Yeah, we did on,
We can spend it somewhere else, Jim.
That's right, but it has to be one of the projects. If it was a bond project, it has to be on a bond project. But anyway, those two bridges are still in the design phase, and it's a pretty involved process. they've got to go through rights of way, because if they ever stray off of their right of way, they've got to have, property, people's permission, and, they've got to engineer detours. There's a lot of work to it. So heading on to the next round of projects. South Road, we would like to, start this in the spring of 2025, which means advertising it, this winter. This is the section of South Road from Newfield to Hollow Road. So it's not the stretch right down by the Torrington Town line, but at least we're starting somewhere and making progress up in that rural area. Moore Avenue, we kind of have dropped the ball on that just because of bandwidth, but the next step is really evaluating the drainage so we can develop a scope of work. And then again, working around the sewer utility, because there's some outdated sewer infrastructure in that area. Roberts Ave is a pretty short stretch of road. There's really no utilities other than drainage, so that's a pretty easy one to fit in with Moore Avenue. Wani Road, again up in Winchester off of Newfield. Really, we're just trying to, coordinate our replacement of the drainage and paving with DOT so that we get ahead of their detour. And because that road that's pretty bad. The drainage has really completely reached the end of it's beyond the end of its service life. Spring Street, that's also on the bond. Yeah, nothing new on that. We are working on, ideally I'd like to do that as part of, again, in the budget that has yet to pass, we've got money for repairing catch basin tops on Rockwell, Superior, and Ridge Street, which are all right in the same area as Spring Street. We have money, the gas company did their paving, but before we let them pave, we want to fix these basins so that money isn't wasted. While we're doing that, we want to combine Spring Street into that so that we can, do all of that in one fell swoop, make one project out of it, get some, economies of scale.
South, Moore, Roberts, and Wani are all bond.
Yes. Again, I'm 90% sure I'll put a tag on each of those, before I post this. Dormant project, sadly, this is a dormant project, is the Holabird Avenue drainage. Again, same story as last time. There's just, so much bandwidth in our office. We've got to get the engineers. They weren't real keen on listening to us, and it kind of ground to a halt.
Who wasn't keen?
The engineering firm, they just kept trying to overcomplicate the project, and we kept trying to reel it into something reasonable, and turned into a bit of a fight. And that's why it's kind of ground to a halt.
These are the engineers we hire,
Yeah,
and it turned into a fight.
maybe a fight's a bit of a strong word, but we weren't on the same.
Is that also a bond project, Hollywood?
Yeah, and the complicating factor, it's also a lot SIP funded project, so we're, mixing funds, so you've got to follow everybody's rule on each parts of it. It gets logistically pretty complicated.
How much is Halliburton?
Don't know off the top of my head, but it's a
Isn't it
big-
like $1.5 million?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Distance?
Paid for by the bond and by the
I
lots
think
of.
we had a million of it was the bond and the 500,000. So the lot SIP is the section from Whiting Street up to Colony Drive. And by far the most difficult part of it with all the utilities, drainage on both sides, big pipes, deep, sidewalks, curbing, the whole 9 yards. And then from there up, the pipe size gets smaller, it gets a little bit shallower, and there's, fewer utilities and no sidewalks. So the bottom section is just brutally expensive, the top section, a little bit less so. And then other jobs that were really just, casually planning. I had spoken a little bit about, the two projects on West Wakefield Boulevard. Lake Street, that's, the gas company has already come in. we told them that this was on our bond project, and said, hey, you guys gotta get in there and do your gas work if you have any, and they said, yes, we have some, so they went in, they started their gas work, and then they ran into trouble with, there just wasn't enough room for them to fit their gas lines amongst all the other utilities and still leave room for our drainage. So therefore, the project just took forever. But their pipes are in the ground. They had an issue down on the state highway where they didn't, again, I don't even know the issues they had with them. That was kind of off on my radar. But the gas line is in, and, you know, our next step is really to start the engineering process, so that we, we're still waiting. You know, we contacted the COG and told them, you know, asked them again about our lot zip application for this. We only get an application about once every 5 years because there's, you know, just the order in which they go. And so they had to go look through their books and find out that that we're in line for this, and so we're still in contact with them on funding. So this project is just logistically pretty challenging. Newfield Road, that's a big project. It's a difficult project to fund because the road is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's horizontally and vertically
Challenged.
vertical curve challenged, yes. And because of that, we don't qualify for certain funds because we'd have to meet all the horizontal and vertical curvature things, which would just drive the cost to be completely stupid. I'm working with Tom on a RAISE grant, and I don't even know what that grant is. I stumbled on it. I threw it upon him to research a little bit, but you know, we've got some bond money on that, I believe, and we'd like to, you know, supplement as much of that as we could to get it off of the bond. So most of those were bond projects. I think a couple other ones snuck in there, but I'll clean that up a little bit. The rest of these are non-bond projects. The Smith Hill Road Bridge rehabilitation, Schultz Corporation out of Terryville was awarded this project. I think it was $165,000. They started a few weeks ago. For the most part, it seems to be going okay. They did find one area of bad concrete that was worse than we expected, but seems to be manageable. Sidewalks, I haven't touched that. The culvert at Hannafin Road, somehow so Hannafin Road is part of the bond. The culvert is not. So we still, you know, we have been selected for the state local bridge program, which is roughly a 50-50 mix rather than the federal local, which is 80-20. So we still need to find, you know, our half of the roughly $1 million project for that. The Brook Street drainage, we're pretty dialed in on how to get that going. We've gotten the gas company in and they've moved their utilities out of our way. But the funding source is the budget that has yet to pass. Same exact story for Brookside Avenue. Gas company, we forced them to move there. They had, at some point in time, put a gas main directly over our storm drains. Our storm drains wore out. We couldn't get at them to fix them. We had to move the gas main. That's done. And now, if the budget passes, we can do that work as well. Sunny Ridge, again, depends on the budget. We've done the drainage work already. It's just a matter of paving. I did speak a little bit about the Rockwell Street, Superior Street, Ridge Street, you know, catch basin tops. And again, budget needs to pass for that to get going. The under drains we put along Mountain Road, the drainage is complete. I don't know how we're gonna pay for the repaving. That was not something we have budgeted, but we'll either figure it out or we won't. The Orchard Street is another project that we did not anticipate doing, but last year it was a glacier all winter long, and so we went up there and our crew alongside a contractor installed a bunch of drainage, which was wicked challenging. We had very shallow depth to bedrock, gas, water, sewer, utilities existing. So we fought pretty hard all week last week, but we're feeling pretty good about what we've accomplished. A little bit of an update on the Highland Lake stream issue. If you remember, during significant storm events or when we opened a gate at Highland Lake, the water floods Boyd Street. So we did a pretty extensive search of where we think the water is going, isn't going, should be going, shouldn't be going. And I brought my findings to the DOT, and they have engineers working on what they think is, it was a solution that I recommended. They're at least looking at it, and that's just to put a catch basin in where that water gathers and run it somewhere rather than spend gazillions of dollars trying to redo that riverbank. The retaining wall at 834 East Wakefield Boulevard went out to bid. Yield Construction of Torrington is the apparent low bidder. I don't know that we've sent off the award to bid yet, but everything looks good, and the work is expected to start shortly after Labor Day. And that's pretty much everything, except I did add one maintenance item, which isn't what I would typically have on here, only because it's a topic that you're gonna need to be aware of. We're really starting to see it. I went and looked at several trees today. Beech trees are taking a wicked hit right now, and I have a feeling this is gonna be very similarly costly as the emerald ash borer was to the ash trees. It's a nematode that's infected with a fungus, I think, that gets into the leaves, and the trees they're dying fast and in big numbers. And if that hits, I mean, it costs us, the town, somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year just in ash trees. Our usual tree clearing budget was about $30,000 a year. It went up to $200,000. And then last year we only did about $100,000, and it wasn't enough. I'm seeing the pain of it right now, and I just can't get out there to address it. So I just thought instead of, after all the great news I just gave you, I thought I'd give you a little bit to bring you back to reality. So just be mindful, that's gonna hurt. And it's gonna hurt every single town in Connecticut, probably. But, so that's that. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Questions?
Hey, Jim, how do we get more engineering help? I mean, you talked about one firm that we use. If we're gonna spend the money on engineering, rather than only use one firm, can we use multiple firms? Because the frustration, let me tell you, the one thing that we all hear loud and clear from everybody is pave something, right? We're getting when you pass a bond for X millions of dollars, people expect very quickly they're gonna see all these nice roads, right? And I get it, we've got a lot of preliminary work that goes on, but when you say that certain things are dormant or just not happening, can we get more engineering help? Can we get other help that would get some of these projects moving so that we're not still talking about, well, this project hasn't started, and if it did on time, it was still a 2027. Which is just trying to calm some of the frustration that the public has, because we just need to move the roads along.
Well, the roads are moving along. I just spent an hour talking about all the progress that we are making.
Yeah, no.
On top of that, the answer to your question about engineering, the engineers are so swamped. We're using several engineers, and they're doing their best. And we couldn't even take on anymore because we can't even manage what the engineers are doing. So to your point, is there something we could do about getting some help? We've talked about it. We actually intended to put, a clerk of the works or some such position in and pay for it through the bond. I mean, it's part of the project. We don't even have a place for that person to work out of. We don't have, and trying to find that person is time we don't have. So you're not wrong on wanting it. Delivering it's a much bigger challenge. So I know it's not the answer you wanted, and I don't know how to pull it off. There's few engineers out there. The bandwidth it takes us to pay attention, especially on construction inspection, because the engineers can't even find enough or the best inspectors. So we're watching like a hawk. which takes time off of planning the next job. So it's a feedback loop that I don't know how to do it, short of having an engineering staff, which, I just, we need a place for them to work out of at some point, so it's a really hard question that believe me, I wish every day I had the opportunity to go to, have a staff of people that could do that, and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to.
I think it's a good point though, Paul, and Jim, I think we need to have that discussion sooner or later, because I have pulled the numbers from finance over these, and we've, last 3 or 4 years, we've spent millions on engineering.
I would imagine.
Outside engineers, which could equate to salaries, correct? More jobs, we need offices, we can find space, there's space, there could be some shifting around.
I'd love the conversation to start.
Because then you would ultimately have a lot more control over your in-house engineers. And there is licensed, professional engineers out there with stamps, and there's guys with civil experience. We'd have to pay them, again, they're not cheap positions, but with what we're spending on outside contractors. And, right now I'm doing a major project at work too, and we're using 2 different outside engineering firms, and what I find I'm getting frustrated because I'm running out of time. I got a budget too, right? Mine expires end of 2024. They want these projects done. I can't even get these engineers to call me back.
Yep.
What I'm finding with these outside engineers, they're taking on so many jobs that they're putting a few hours in on for me, and then they're putting a few hours in on for you, and I'm not getting the attention. Whereas if I could have these engineers on staff.
That's exactly what we're experiencing.
So it may be a worthwhile discussion to look at a future engineering department. I think would save time. And I think to Paul's point, where we're getting frustrated is so you mentioned South Road on here. I've had, because I'm off Newfield, right, so I get people all the time for South Road going, I saw they're doing South Road, they're gonna start South Road. I said, well, it's on the list, I'm looking at it. And then they look it up on the website and they go, why are they doing from Newfield to Hollow Road? There's 3 houses on that section. And the rest of the road has 40 houses on it. Why aren't we doing the rest of the road? Why are we doing the part with, I said, I don't know. And I understand there's engineering and a lot of this, but we're still getting the people saying, but what are we paving? What are we paving? We want to, and when we don't have, I guess, the proper answer for them all the time either.
Well, I think you do, and you do. And I think what people have to understand is when we went out and we borrowed the money for the roads, is they were project specific, right? And as Selectman Perez brought up that, to take on these large stretches of roads, to do the infrastructure underneath, it was $1 million, right? And that was wise to go out and bond. But now you look at the last page of your sheet, and there's a telling sign on this last page of the sheet. And you look at Brook Street, Brookside Ave, Sunny Ridge, go on and go on and go on.
Yep.
And it says depending on budget passing. Now let's just say the budget passes on its next round. So now we're looking at the beginning of August. Oh, by the way, 168 other communities probably already have their budget approved. They're paving money. They've already gone out to bid, and they've locked in their contractors. We're behind the 8 ball now. So now we go out. Can we even get on their schedule for this summer or this fall? Or are these contractors booked up? There's a domino effect that happens with it. So, we do have to have an honest conversation with ourselves next budget year and really decide, okay, how much money do we want to put in that mill and pave? I'm sure there's a bunch of roads out there. Jim and I will sit down, a bunch of roads out there that we feel confident that we can mill and pave. We won't cause any damage underneath it. And that's a conversation we do have to have for next year. But minimally, we need to have a budget that passes so we can get the work that we have on the plans done.
Yep.
And continue on, with the roadway infrastructure bond that you all, went out and did a few years ago. So the projects are moving, but yes, some of the simpler jobs is relying on money, it's relying on budgets passing, and we're getting there. I mean, we're ready to pounce. I mean, you just saw, I signed 2 contracts, they were almost $3 million, right? On, help me, Jim, you're gonna know quicker than me.
Elm Street and Hubbard Street.
Elm Street and Hubbard Street, thank you, I knew you would have it. Elm Street, I mean, almost, $2.5–3 million right there. We're starting to unlock, the long-awaited of this, but, unfortunately, engineering is not a sexy, thing to look at, to talk about. but it needed to get done. But we're approaching that, now we're gonna be able to get out there and get these roads, you know, looking good again.
So I think that, I guess my point, Paul, is just for us and for future selectmen and whatnot, we gotta kind of put something in the budget, we gotta have a little mix. These projects are gonna be great, when people see them done, they're gonna be like, oh, Elm Street looks real nice. But it took 4 years to get there. In the mix, we gotta find a 500 yards of road somewhere that's got no drains in it, whether it be up in the thing, where it's just for us pavement. They just want their car just for one road, just to go over and they're like,
Yeah.
you know, and just to appease them, because I get questions all the time, and everybody's got a road. Everybody calls, we got a different road.
And then the next question besides that is gonna be, you know, they're gonna look at Elm Street, you're going, yeah, this is great. And then the next question they're gonna say is, why did they stop there? And then if I went to the next intersection, why did they stop there?
Oh, yeah, I get that too.
Every single time. So,
I get
you know,
that too.
this is a function of resources. You know, it's clear and simple.
Getting stuff into next year, though, that can be just mill and pave, find that list.
Yep.
Because to your point, it's not as expensive, and we can make progress quickly, you know, visible progress. That'd be a great list to have as we talk about how to spend money next time.
Oh, definitely. You know, I'm waiting to pounce. Once we have a budget, we literally will turn the page on the 26 fiscal year budget, because we have a 25 once we get the approval on it. But we start this really early fall. I mean, you start to see, you know, copies obviously the beginning of the year, January, February timeframe, but we have a lot of work to do to get you what we present to you, you know, in the beginning of the year. So we're very much looking forward to sitting down with all of you and talking about, you know, roads. I see it, you know, I do happen to go on social media at times and I see, you know, people asking for roads, and we're gonna present, you know, a budget that does include roads, and the simple roads of just the mill and pave. And maybe there's infrastructure underneath it, but maybe we don't have to touch it, you know.
Yeah, obviously, certain sections of town have a lot of it. There's a lot of town,
Yep.
sections of town that don't have much of it. And again, it's just, we're bringing it up because it's a hot topic.
Yeah.
I don't
Of
care
course it is.
who or what we post on social media. We can talk about a bear over on the Winchester-Norfolk line, and somebody will say, I'm surprised he didn't break his paws in the potholes. Those conversations always turn to roads. I don't care what you post, you know, it was a beautiful day on High Lake, yeah, but I killed my car driving up there. It's just the town, it's just the sentiment of the whole town right now. I
Well,
get it from
that's
every
30
direction.
years of deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's the answer right there.
Yeah.
Maybe
And,
longer. I've only been paying attention
You
for
have
about
the
30.
price of asphalt, obviously has, you know, escalated as well. You're not getting as much as you used to for the money either. So now that dollar is getting stretched, so we're $1 million.
That's not true, it went down a little bit.
I'm talking 10 years ago. You know, 10 years ago it was a lot cheaper to pave than it is
Oh,
now.
absolutely.
Yeah,
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
How
So
much is it to mill and pave a mile? Or half a mile, or a quarter mile?
I don't have the figures in front of me,
I don't
but I
have
did,
it
I
either.
gave you a paper that.
Yeah, I don't
that-
remember. And it depends on what you're putting down for material too.
Right.
I know,
how
but
deep you're going.
just,
A
Ballpark.
typical 2-inch
Depends on
mill.
how deep you
look, there's two
mill.
of you that do that every day. In general, what is like a half mile, a quarter mile, a mile, like just a simple mill and pave?
You could probably mill and pave 2 inches, 2 and 2, so you mill 2, pave 2, a mile, probably for under $200,000. That's not drainage work,
Right,
that's just mill and pave.
That's just laid down, 200,000.
That's
And then you add
equipment,
drainage and you add
labor.
everything else.
Yes, correct,
So 200,000 is 0.2 mils.
right.
So if you
So
want
you-
10 of them,
For $1 million, you could do
Five.
5 roads, 5 miles of road.
So, and I'm not a paving guy, Troy, I just have to ask the question. So with a 2-inch mill and a 2-inch pave, life expectancy of that road, what would you think?
10, 15 years, and then if you chip seal it, more.
So, you know, that there becomes, the wild card is, okay, was $200,000 a worthwhile investment to get 10, 15 years out of that road, knowing full well, in 10, 15 years,
well,
you
but
know.
I mean, but isn't that what that's what the challenge is, right?
Yes.
So we have certain amount of money that we can ask for. And there are ongoing costs in every other department, right? You got the town salaries, the Board of Ed salaries, you got all of those things. And then And then you got, you know, the expenditures in capital, and you know, the trucks you need, et cetera, et cetera. So how much can you put towards roads, and how many roads can be simple roads in town? I know there's a list of our 81 miles of road. It's in a file somewhere in terms of what's been done, what hasn't been done. So you can look at it. So the willingness is then, how many .2s do you want to pay for in the budget? And you're gonna get that from a grand list growth if you get it, or you're gonna have to pay for it, but you can't, nobody's gonna pave it for free. So how many .2s at 200,000 can you have in a year?
That's why you can't rob from your budget every year and take away from paving, because you gotta look at it this way. If the road's gonna last 15 years approximately, some roads in Winston are probably 40 years old and finally got bad. So sometimes, I mean, they last a little longer depending on where they are. But, so you gotta have a 15-year plan. So that's the magic number, that the roads are gonna destroy themselves in 15
Right,
years.
so we have,
So you gotta divide 81 miles
yep,
by 15 years.
Right.
That's how many roads you have to pay per year.
correct.
To keep up. If you do not do that, like we have not been doing that for 9 years or whatever, that's where you
And
get
why
into
haven't we
this.
been able to do that, Troy?
I don't know, I wasn't a selectman, so you can.
Oh, I'll
can
tell you,
me how
because Henry stole the money. We had no
But
money in the
insurance company
bank.
paid it back though.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
They paid back 1.1 million, 1.2 million. We didn't get
You
to all
can't
that.
blame everything on Henry, so you gotta.
Well, we can blame it on vote no, vote no, vote no.
You can blame
That's
it
what
on
you can
that,
blame it
too.
on.
But,
right?
but,
So
but the
that's
thing
the
is,
answer.
but the thing is that in the last 5 years, we have been putting that dedicated money into the capital accounts. And you may think that it's not in the category in capital that you want it to be in, but there's been $400,000. There's been, if you look at the audits, which is one of the things I talked about at the last meeting, if you look at the audits, we've routinely over the past couple of years have been putting in 1 million, 1.5 million. This year, we're putting in 2 million into capital. So the question going forward is, yes, you need to have those funds that remain steady, and that was the entire idea of making sure everything is steady. We have a fund balance, and so now that's what we've been doing over the past 3 or 4 years. You can look at the finances that we just got right now, right? That looks at at this current past year. And if you look at the numbers at the bottom, there's not going to be a lot of money that goes into the savings account to be able to pull back out.
Right,
For
we're actually
capital,
in the negatives.
not next year's, because
Right.
we don't have the audit from fiscal year '23, but there will be some surplus that goes into that. But if you look at these numbers right here that we were given tonight, and you look at them, there's, I don't know, a couple $100,000 that will be available for, you know, the year after. And so you're not gonna have all that unless you get grand list growth. And every time we sit here, we are now 9 months in, and we are not doing any economic growth yet. I would like, if you talk about who comes next, is that I would like to see, we asked these questions back in, I don't know, fall. What has happened on, Old Route 8, north and south of it? What has happened? Because that's where the answer is. The answer is, should we have an in-house engineer? But as soon as you put that in-house engineer into the budget, you're at a .2 next year. But the answer is in this grand list growth, and we just have to get to that. And that's where your road answer is. That's where a lot of answers are. So, the next meeting, maybe we can have that happen.
Jimmy, do you have a separate line item specifically for, say, milling and paving or
It
just
does
paving?
not.
No.
You do not have a, I think that's something we need to talk about.
That's
as
what I
well.
was gonna say. I don't pave my town that I work in out of capital. The only time if it's a capital, if it's something that's like Elm Street where it's gonna be a costly, over $1 million, then they'll do a capital project, but they only do one. I'm against bonding because bonding, you're paying for the project kinda twice. You're paying interest on the money you borrowed, and you're still in the same boat when the bond's paid off. Now that road's gonna be bad again, and now you're gonna redo it again. So to me, what should have been done all along is it should have been put in the budget, your DPW budget, separate paving account. That's what I do, and that's what I submit every year. Most years, sometimes he cuts me, sometimes they give me a little extra. We use LoSiP money for that, for
for paving if we have to. That's the responsible way to take care of your roads. Put it
But
in
we've
a
got,
capital,
we've
you're
got
more
30
for saving.
years of not doing that.
Well, that's the problem right there.
So
But we
now,
gotta start somewhere.
yes, I agreed, but now we have to make up for those 30 years.
You'll never make up for them 30 years.
Well, eventually you'll make up for
There's
it,
not
but
enough
it's,
money around here for that.
eventually you'll get there, but it's a painful process and it's a slow process, which is why people don't get what they want as quickly as they want. And then, you know, to the point of where does the money come for all of this? You know, the last round of the budget, when we just dropped 124,000 or so, you know, we call that efficiencies. And, yeah, okay, maybe, I can buy that as an explanation. But the part that maybe people up here or the people in the public don't understand is, just because something's in the budget doesn't mean it gets spent. You know, we watch our lines as closely as anybody, because, especially Public Works, because anything that doesn't get spent through our operating budgets goes back into the general fund, builds your fund balance. That's how they were able to build the money that we were able to use to get our bond rating, to start doing some of these projects, to be able to go out to bond. And so you can nip away, you know, we'll find a way to get through our operating budget with what we have. But now that, at the end of the year, that's gonna be $124,000 that we don't get to push forward next year into capital, because we just chopped it out. Yeah, maybe some of that would've got spent, maybe 110 of that stuff would've, you know, maybe 14 of that would've gotten spent. So, yeah, you probably saved something, but it's not like spend it or don't get it. People budget what they expect, and if they can save something, they do. Or if we can postpone something for another year, we do. And then we budget for it the following year, and that money goes into the fund balance, which is then allocated for all these capital improvements that the town needs. So it's a very fine line. Saving money, you know, one of the things I think all of us, I had to really think about this a lot when I came to Public Works. I'm no longer able to think on a timeline of like personal finance terms. Like, I'm not thinking of, you know, I'm 60 years old. What do I got, another 20 good years, at best 40 years, right? This town has to think in terms of centuries. You know, we're replacing pipes that are 130 years old. We're replacing roads that were built when they were supporting horses and buggies. And now, you know, we're driving trucks that weigh 86,000 pounds. You know, the roads are designed for a speed limit of a horse and buggy, and we've got people driving them with these amazing cars. You wonder why people drive fast? It's because the cars are so good. None of our roads were ever designed with sight lines or stopping distances according to those parameters. So you're trying to make this old infrastructure do something it's completely incapable of doing. The drainage systems, if they existed, were substandard. Now you've got so much developed space, your runoff coefficients are way higher, way faster, your loads are higher, the storm events are more severe and more frequent. So to think we can just mill and pave our way out of this, there's some roads maybe that we can do that. But if you don't do the drainage underneath, that is gonna keep those roads in good condition, so you do get 15 years instead of 6. You know, if you pave over a bad road, those cracks refer up, and it just doesn't hold up. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and you know, a lot of that back thought is what went into the roads that went into the list. You know, that wasn't any one person's decision. That list was generated by a group of people that were talking to other people, and we tried to spread it out so that each part of town got some of the benefit. We wanted it to be, you know, as fair as possible as a starting point, because we hadn't done anything. We haven't done any, our road maintenance plan was to let the water company fix water lines so that they had to repave. And then we went, okay, let the gas company fix it so they can repave. So they would put their stuff in, they would mill and pave. We didn't do anything with the drainage, we didn't do anything with the base, and the roads deteriorated. We went over 20 years without crack filling, sand sealing, or chip sealing. So we're paying the price for decisions made because no one wanted to spend the money at the time. Anyway, I said what I intended
And that's
to.
the problem we're having selling it, right? Because, so, to your point, dependent on budget passing, dependent on, the same people that are coming to me, that are saying, what are you doing with the roads? We want this, just build and pave my road, we want this road done, and then they say, well, you know, we're working on, we're talking about it, we got the budget coming up. Well, this budget's gonna fail because I don't wanna pay more taxes. And I'll look at those people and go, so how do you want us to get the roads paved? You don't want any more taxes, where do we get it? So it's a tough, and that, again, communication, transparency, we gotta get this. It's a hard, this is a hard job,
It's
Jimmy,
a
just like your
very-
job's a hard job.
It's a very.
Getting everybody happy.
It is. You're not
I
gonna.
do understand at this point, I'm never gonna make everybody happy.
No.
And I'm okay with that. If I can make a few of them happy, I'm okay with that. It's a delicate balance, but I am running into that. Some of the same people that are telling me, you want the roads done, you gotta do the roads. I'm saying, well, where's the money come? We gotta raise a little. Well, I'm gonna spend another dime. We want a zero increase. Well,
I had a lot of feedback on where's the bond money, where's the roads getting done, all that. I mean, that was a lot of frustration, I think, and thank you, Jim, for all the detail and specifically what's bond, what's not, how long is it? These are all things that, at least when we get asked, we can answer the questions somewhat intelligently. It's roads, I can't be, as intelligent as the experts here that do roads, but people are just super frustrated. There was a whole bunch of stuff about the budget. I kind of wanted to set some facts straight, so I put out a post on the budget itself, and man, the amount of road comment was, I can't even begin to count them. So it's a hot ticket. It's what people want us to focus on. I don't know that they want to have us, would you pay a full mill to get, $1 million worth of roads done?
If it was their road, probably. Therein is, that's the point. This country is, recently, we're in this, I really want this, but I want someone else to pay for it. That's what it's all about. We want someone else to pay for what we want. People, this is a point I'm glad I remembered to bring up. The local budget. I was a business owner for years, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that I had to pay taxes on. I never minded paying my local property taxes because I could see where it goes to work. I went to the schools, I drive the roads, I see what it does. I served on land use commissions. I had to get pole permits. I can see where my money goes. The money I give to the state for income tax, whatever taxes, that's just gone into this abyss. It's half as efficient as what we use. The stuff that goes to the feds is half as efficient again. Maybe another factor of double. Like, the best tax dollar value you have is your local government. And now that I work here, and Glenn and I had the same conversation. We both came, and worked for the town, assuming we were gonna come in and see a bunch of government waste, fraud, and abuse, where everybody's a bunch of slackers. I'm sorry to admit it, but that's what I came in expecting. And boy, was I shocked when I realized how mindful everybody was of every dime they spent. The decisions that were being made at Public Works were awful because they never had any resources to make good decisions. They did everything as cheaply as they could. And it's like, holy guacamole, we had to start from scratch and retrain people to think intelligently because it was drilled out of them because they had zero resources. So we have come so far. I've only been here 10 years, and we have come so far. There's a long way to go, but at least the roads are improving rather than deteriorating. Your road might be deteriorating, yours might be getting better.
I live on a state road, so I'm good.
Okay.
hey, I'm on Newfield, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. But
East Wakefield, we don't want to go there, right?
right.
And don't ever pave in front of my house.
You've told me that, and I will do my best not to. So the challenges are great. It's hard, and you guys have a really hard job because exactly what Bill is saying. You've got the public that doesn't want to spend anything, and I get that. When I hear stories from the old timers at Public Works about what they used to do with, I know why they didn't wanna spend any money on the roads. Like, it was not a good use of anybody's money.
This is where transparency comes in, Jimmy, to help us with this too, right? Everybody's heard this story. Everybody in this room's that's heard this story that, well, Public Works drives around in the summertime with their plow blades down because they gotta wear them off, because if they don't use them up, they won't get new ones for next year.
Yeah.
And
that is
that's a
not true.
perception that everybody's heard about the state, right? Everybody heard that story? Or you never
I
heard that?
actually
They wear their plow blades down on the plow trucks. They have to, because if they don't, they'll cut their budget, and the next year, when they need the plow blades, they won't get any more.
I'll attest, I haven't seen any Public Works trucks driving.
Well,
for
you haven't seen it, but you've heard those stories, right? You've heard those stories, obviously, and I know, personally, I have never seen you guys driving up and down Newfield Road to plow down in the summertime, but you'll run into people say, oh yeah, they do that, I've seen them do that.
Well,
Okay.
just to give a little bit of truth to that,
Well,
and just to give a little bit of truth to where that probably started, there was at one point in time a belief that if you just put a brand-new plow blade on a plow, that first few miles, it wasn't gonna scrape
Cut
very
the
clean.
edge, yeah.
So they would take those trucks out when they got them going, and they drop the plow and go somewhere just to wear it in so it was ready to go. Whether there's any truth to that working or not, we don't do that. But
Yeah, they don't do that.
that is my understanding of where that rumor started.
yeah.
So it's
But
like
you've
most,
heard the story.
like most
It was
misinformation,
you
it's-
don't use it or lose it. You
Right,
gotta
it-
use
it's-
it or they lose it.
like most misinformation, it's based on a shred of truth that somebody perverts.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that one's cleared up.
I have a question, just to get off the subject a little bit, but I'm concerned about why you wear so many hats. Why are you filling out the wetland permits? Do you not have
Someone has to.
support? You don't have staff support that can do that?
There is
Or is it-
so much going on. Everybody in my department is booked like to the gills.
So to
You know,
have
the wetlands office, you know, actually has done, you know, a couple of them for me.
Okay.
You know, but they don't know the finer points, you know, someone that's intimately involved, you know, you would have no idea how many things
So
are,
all those projects are held up because the permits,
it's-
and
yeah.
you have,
Yeah,
it's your
let's-
task?
yeah, I mean, just the amount of time it
We
takes to
gotta go through
update.
meetings, Linda,
Yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
is.
I understand that,
You
but
know,
to
it-
get the permits, that.
Yeah, it's
Permit's the
mind-blowing.
easy part.
So
but
Jimmy
he's-
takes
he's-
care of roads.
He's filling them out.
Right, he's taking care of roads,
And there's
he's
no
got
one to do that
cemeteries,
task.
he's got park and
Yeah,
recs,
again,
he's got water
he
and
said he wears
sewer.
many
What else am I
hats.
missing?
Other town properties.
Other town properties.
And then
He's
anything.
overloaded.
And Public Works is asked to do pretty much everything that nobody else either wants to do or has the ability to do. You know, we got called in the other night when the bandstand electricity went down. That's a rec department thing, but they didn't have the skills, so they called us in. Yeah, good for them, right? They made the right call. But we are spread so thin, it's mind-blowing that we get done what we get done. I have a list of trees that people are waiting for return calls on. I haven't even returned texts today because I haven't had time. It's insane, not to belabor the point, but it takes so much more to do things than anybody realizes. You know, you don't just go and do a project, you've gotta plan out you gotta work in the non-summer season. We can't really get our road closed projects started until the school buses are gone, and we have to have it cleaned up before the school buses come back. Like, nobody thinks of those hurdles, but we have to, you know? Again, you could go on forever, and I don't wanna make excuses, it's just that it's a really hard job, and there's a lot going on, and, you know, if I didn't have, again, I'm gonna plug them because my direct reports are off the charts. You know, Alex down at the sewer plant, Jeff at the water plant, Phil is a superintendent of street, Victor, superintendent of waterworks, and Rhonda in the office, and Bart as project managers. You couldn't ask for anybody better at their jobs than those guys. And if they weren't hitting grand slams all day, every day, none of this stuff would be done. So the public, I don't even think they could understand all of what's going on. It's mind-blowing, but it gets, you know, so diluted because we're so many places. You know, we hear a lot of comments. I see the water and sewer trucks driving around all the time doing nothing. Well, they're driving from one call to another because people are getting serviced. But it doesn't appear that way to the public. But I used to think the same thing, so I understand it. Until
Somebody asked me today, Winchester Waterworks has a service vehicle, and I go, yeah, I would assume, why? And they said, well, because I saw it going by, there was 2 guys in it, they were driving, so they're probably going on a service call.
Yeah, yeah, and
But I
it's,
got that question today,
and
that's
it
fine.
could be something as simple as somebody has a high water usage, and they go and check the meter.
Right.
You know, so they're hit and run, it's mind-blowing.
Jimmy, would it help you to have a specific dedicated line item for paving?
Sure.
I think that's something we need to look into for the future.
I'd
and
like to
talk
see you
about it.
do a line item for paving, tree removal, gravel, just like I do.
No,
'Cause
we
it's
do have
more
our,
straightforward.
we do have a general gravel line, but I do
Yeah,
think,
but at least paving, I think you should have a, and again, we might not be able to fund it with a lot right off the bat, but we need to work that in, and we need to have
Well,
because the road issue, whether I'm here in a couple of years or nobody, this road issue is never gonna go away for whoever's sitting around this table for a long time. That's gonna be, and I think if we at least had a dedicated line, say, look, we're putting what we can into this line and giving Public Works something every year.
Particularly
Again,
if we
bond projects, grants, all great, but
Particularly if we can identify the things that can be just milled and paved, right? Where you can show, okay, we can mill and pave these 15 roads, these 25, whatever the number is, and every year you can nip away at that in the budget. But if you knock off 5 roads a year or 10, God forbid, 10 roads a year that are just the milling and paving ones, that shows a lot of progress. And I think then people get excited and, you know, it maybe makes the budget easier in general.
Yeah.
Have
Because
you all seen the 2016 road report?
I've not seen it.
yeah, it was updated in 19 and it's ready to be updated
So
once
it might
more.
be a good idea to send it along to everybody, because they're,
I have seen that.
So another thing though, that Jimmy brought up, and he's right, if you can't just go out and mill and pave either. He doesn't have a line item for catch basin, parts. So you gotta have money for that, because when you're going to mill and pave a road, what I do is I check every single drainage, and that's what you do. And if it needs to be fixed, you fix it. If it doesn't, you can let it ride. If you think it's gonna make it 10 years, then you let it ride.
You mean the catch basin?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
fix all of them.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's just a top. Sometimes it's a repair. Sometimes it's 2 full basins. Sometimes it's pipe. I don't know what you have for pipe on a lot of these roads.
Sometimes it just takes a new ditch along the side of the road that has to be constructed. Like,
Right.
sometimes it's not much,
Right.
but it still takes time.
Right.
And, you know, when they're doing that, they're not doing roadside mowing, which we can't keep up with. You know, this time of year, it's almost impossible to keep up with.
But the problem is, he doesn't have a budget for this stuff. So where does he get the money from? Okay, we're gonna take money out of our paving line, okay, to mill and pave. But now I need 5 basins. Where am I getting that money from? This is what I'm saying. You gotta have, and the 2 biggest ones that we're both facing are paving and trees. And trees is getting bigger and bigger as we go. And that's gonna be a dangerous problem for this town and every other town. We're all facing it. And pretty soon, you know, you're gonna be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to remove trees, and you're not even gonna put a dent in them. So you know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
Are you short-staffed down there, Jim, or you do have a full crew?
We're a little short-staffed right now. We have 2 vacant positions in the street department. And, you know, really the only thing we're waiting on for that, you know, we want to advertise it. But, you know, I don't want to hire somebody and then have a budget fail and then have to cut a position.
Well, that was my next step. is
So
to-
I'm holding off till we at least have a budget. I mean,
And
they're
that-
budgeted, they are pre-existing condition, you know, positions. And then the other thing with Phil being out, I'd like him to be part of the selection process, so we're
Absolutely.
waiting until he's at least well enough to do
And
interviews.
the budget is the biggest thing here. That's the biggest driver in the whole town. But once that budget passes, that will free Paul up to be able to do some grand list growth, because he's spending an awful lot of time on a budget over and over and over again. And it's kind of ridiculous and redundant, and
I couldn't agree.
they want roads, but you want to cut your budget, so you cut the roads, or you cut something, and where's the balance?
Which is exactly why we are where we are. And again, don't get me wrong, I understand, people were right you know, a decade ago or so, and even before that, because they weren't getting any value for their tax dollars. A, because Henry was stealing some, and B, you know, what I hear of stories that occurred at Public Works and how they really
Yeah, I've heard
did
those
not
stories.
make good use of
No.
resources. So, but, you know, are we perfect? Absolutely not. You know, I've made multi-$1,000 mistakes, and then we've also, you know, hit home runs and go, holy cow, we just saved that money. It goes back and forth. We make mistakes all the time,
Yep.
but that's because we're doing stuff, you know?
Exactly.
We try to be, you know, responsible with everybody's tax dollars, and I don't know, I think you get my point. I've spoken a lot
All right.
longer than I ever intended to.
Thank you, Jimmy. Let's start.
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Knowing that this is a pretty sensitive topic and it definitely took some length tonight, which I think was good, how often would this board at least like some type of an update on the roads? Should we possibly have Mr. Rollins back at the end of August, beginning of September? You know, having an email come in on a Thursday, hey, can Mr. Rollins, you know, it caught us a little flat-footed. We were able to perform, and thank you, Mr. Rollins, for that. We can change it, but roughly, when would the board like to talk about roads?
I think they wanted 2 months last time, and sometimes in the winter we spread it out.
Yeah.
I just lost track of time. I didn't put it on my calendar, so if you want.
I would be fine with 2 months.
2 months?
2 months.
Agreed.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
And since we're on this, the Canada is, I would like to bring land use back in, zoning enforcement. I know they do it with planning and zoning, but I would like to get an update on what they're working on, how enforcement's going, what projects they have in the work that we don't know about, and we bring finance in, right?
Every other on the second meeting of the month, finance
Exactly.
comes
So
in.
in my mind, if these guys are okay with it, I would like to touch base with some of these other departments as well, just
We used to get monthly reports.
I had heard that rumor, and there was going to be talked about at the directors' meeting. I was looking at engaging those monthly reports again, and it sounds like this board is very open to receiving those.
Very,
Get you
very
copies of
interested
what
in
they
that
were
because
contained.
you know me, you see me here all the time. When I want an update from a department, I come in, I say hi to you, and then I go down and ask. But if I could get a report,
Nope, the board never stopped those reports. The board's always wanted those reports. The
Okay.
board did not stop those reports.
So I had to find how they got stopped then. Maybe I won't even ask. I'll
It
just get the
simply could
reports.
have just been.
Just get them.
I'll just get them.
We'll get you a copy of what they consisted of.
and reports, like I like what we just did here with Jimmy, right? I got some information. I don't want, everything's going good, we're working on all kinds of new projects. The department's wonderful.
They were much more
Oh,
detailed than that.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get you also monthly
And
reports.
EDC included in that list would be nice, right? Everybody agree?
Well, they have the minutes, so.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. That was really helpful.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
and-
Rollins.
Sorry it took so long, but it's.
Thanks for your time, Jimmy.
And Candy, to answer your question, I did some quick math. A mile of paving, just the asphalt itself is about 140,000. That's a 2-inch mill and just a 2-inch,
But just the asphalt.
just the asphalt.
And then after the 124, you
Yeah.
gotta pay the labor.
Yeah, so for the milling and yep. Yeah, so that's plus trucking and, yeah, there's a lot more to it. So, you know, if you could pull it off for 200, you might be able to do 1.5 inches for 200, but.
I gave you that paper with the quotes.
Yeah,
from
but I
two
don't,
different
can't,
companies.
I have a bazillion numbers in my head. That ain't one of them. But anyway, just so you know, that's just for the
Yeah, well,
asphalt.
the reason I brought up the 2016 and updated report, and, you know, I know some people don't like the numbers that were assigned to their roads and stuff like that, but there's not that many roads out there that are just mill and paves.
Not many.
No.
You know, the one that we have actually in the budget that has yet to pass is Price Road. And, you know, this is one that I think is a real value to the town, which is a road that probably nobody in town even drives. It's the industrial park. But that's where, I mean, think about the tax base on that road. But people don't drive it, so we could go and, you know, dump a couple $100,000 into that, and no one's even gonna know it. So,
Except when we bring a developer in and we show them this nicely paved road and they decide to open up industry there.
Yeah, when Paul fills that park, we're gonna need that road.
And then we'll pave it.
right, so, but
didn't catch
it's just to kind of communicate the challenges a little bit, not to
You're
get,
talking about the chicken and the egg.
Chicken and the egg, yeah, okay, you got, okay, some, yeah,
anyway,
chicken and
I've
egg.
taken up enough.
Jim, thank you so much.
Moving on to item C, 24-38. Consider and possibly act on the appointment of a moderator for the third annual town meeting to be held Tuesday, July 16th, 2024.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Dennis Dressel to serve as moderator at the third annual town budget meeting to be held at 7 PM on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 at the Gilbert School Auditorium.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? Moving on to item D, discussion regarding the property check, a fraud alert program for property owners. This was a topic that was brought up at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting by a resident. Thank you to Glenn and Paul for researching this for us.
So I apologize that this did not make your packet when we put it together. Came in after we had put all the packets together. We had a gentleman come in at our last special meeting last week, talk about the town of Manchester and what they have been able to unlock with COT systems. What it does is it puts an alert on your property. So if fraudulent activity were to be done on your particular property, somebody taking out a lien on it, trying to move the property, this would alert you that somebody has stopped in the clerk's office and has done something to your property, so you can act quicker than waiting for years to roll around and then figuring out if you go and try and sell the property. This particular gentleman, I want to commend him, excuse me, an email we received shortly after that meeting was that he was willing to make a donation to the town to at least pay for it, and that's how dedicated and how much he thought about this program. But when you look at the costs, we reached out to COT. It's $700 for the initial contract signing, $30 a month, so roughly $1,060 to roll this software out. We will need to advertise it, market it to our residents. It's not something that automatically gets placed on their property. They then need to go in and lock their property and then turn on the notification if their name or property has, had activity done to it. So before you tonight is an expenditure of $1,060 to have the town clerk roll this software out. I was going to come before you with a transfer tonight. I can't do that due to items 914 or 915 in the charter. Have to wait until at least April to do that. I will let you know that throughout the course of the year, we will try and find as many savings as we can in the clerk's budget to try and fund the $1,060 to initiate this software. But I will possibly need a transfer. It's one of those chicken and egg things where I don't think we should wait, but I want you to be alerted that I may need a transfer if we aren't able to create efficiencies in that clerk's office. Where I was recommending is we would take it out of the Board of Selectmen contingency fund. I think this would be a great use of the Board of Selectmen contingency funds, that we're giving this software to every single person in town that has property that they can, lock in their property and make sure that no fraudulent activity is being done on it.
So I think you need to clarify on this too, though, Paul, that just so the public knows, and when we give this to homeowner, this does not prevent, am I correct in that? This does not prevent anybody from stealing your deed. It's if somebody is trying to access it, it's just gonna give you notification that's trying to be accessed.
Correct.
It is not in any way, because he was very concerned about, well, what if somebody gets my deed? If somebody gets it and has it, it's beyond the town's help.
Yeah,
It
but
becomes
this is gonna alert you that you need to take
But this will alert
action.
you that somebody is trying to play around with your property records.
So I don't know if any of you guys can answer this, because I'm thinking about,
Troy, Candy had her hand up, can we go to her first?
So, my question is, what prevents somebody else from locking in onto my property?
So what you're using is your name. So you're not actually, and I can,
But all records, all property records are public. Real estate agents go to the assessor's office and ask for everybody's name, all the properties in a download. You know, because people have my name, and I learned this, you know, over the past couple of years with my father's houses. And people that call me for that. People get all this, it's all public information. What's to stop a bad actor from being me in this system?
being you.
Claiming that they're her, putting it on.
Right, I mean, because I'm very public, right? Every one of you sitting here now is very public. Right, so people check my things all the time. They like to go in and, you know, we could all go on to the assessor's page. We could all go into into tax bills, and we see everything everybody has. So it'd be pretty easy to be me. There's no like assigned number from the town on my property record cards or anywhere else to, you know, just no two-factor authentication saying that it's me. So if we went to this system and notifications went out about somebody checking my property, your property, her property, what's to stop other people from also having those notifications, just to figure out what I'm doing with my own property?
It's an interesting question. So I know the town I live in, we just rolled this software out and I registered myself. So if anyone pulls, you know, Paul Harrington, I'm going to get an alert.
What if somebody wants to?
What if somebody wants to be Paul Harrington?
So before we move forward with this, I would like those answers from this company.
I would like those answers as well. Glenn,
What's the security within this system to make sure we're getting the actual property owner registered and not someone pretending to be them?
and I'm gonna speak from personal experience, who just did this roughly 2 weeks ago. I don't believe I went in as Paul Harrington, but I guess I didn't have to be Paul Harrington.
Did they ask you for like social security, birthday, other identifying factors?
They did not.
So why can't I go in and sign up and be everybody?
Well, you may be able to, but the one you signed up for, oh, sorry.
Sorry for your interruption.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Glenn might know this. Every property I ever purchased or sold or whatever, I had my closing attorney do what's called mortgage insurance, which protects your deed from fraud. So, and it also protects you from if they frauded the deed and sold it to you as a, so would that be something that's protection for something like this?
I would not be able to answer that, Troy, I don't know.
You gotta talk to a lawyer then.
No, your mortgage insurance.
It's not mortgage.
No, oh, your so your
It's in
your
the
title,
closing.
yeah,
Title
insurance. So
mortgage.
your
That's
title
what it is.
insurance,
Yes.
got you. Your title insurance, when you bought that property, you knew at that time it was free and clear, and that then you would be the only one. That has now expired.
It does not prevent anybody.
It does not
from-
prevent
okay.
anything moving. If you were sold that, you might want to go back. What that says is that somebody can't come to you in 5 years and claim, no, I actually own that property. Nope. Then your mortgage, your title insurance would kick in and say, no, we proved and all that, and they would go fight that individual. But anything after you put your name on that deed in the bank, if the bank has a note on it, anything after that, that title insurance is null and it only covered you up until the day of closing.
So getting back to this, two questions. One is, sorry.
Bill's
It's my
turn.
turn.
Thank you.
No, I just had a quick question, I guess, to kind of off Candy's point, so, and maybe you can do this, because you just did this, so you logged on.
Yep.
And you're right, you logged on as Paul Harrington. You maybe didn't have to be Paul Harrington, but what does this system allow you to do? Anything other than just enter your email address and your address? And should someone mess around the clerk's office, it gives you an alert?
Gives me an alert. It can either be on text message or
Is there,
email.
I mean, there's nothing you can do with your property, your information, anything in this? You're
It's-
simply providing them an email?
It's just providing me a notification that somebody is accessing Paul Harrington. It's not even my property. It's anytime somebody's accessing Paul Harrington that I'm gonna get an alert, either, I think I signed up for text. Goes back to I read more text than emails, but yeah.
So then we would know anybody that was looking at our stuff.
I'm gonna try it and see if it works.
So to your point,
Thanks.
if someone's impersonating you, if you went in and made a change to your property, they'd know about it.
Yeah.
But that's all public information anyway, isn't it?
Ooh, Paul, pick
Oh,
me next.
baseball's too.
All this is an alert, right? It's the same information that if I came down to the clerk's office and I wanted to see what Paul Harrington's been up to the last 6 years, I could just find it.
You could.
The only difference here is this sends out an alert. So, I mean, theoretically, and you can ask them, but maybe more than one person can sign up to get alerts with your name, but all they're getting is the same information more easily than they would have coming here to get it.
Correct.
So
It
it's,
is interesting, that, it's a question of the day.
Because this stems from, there's people out there quick claiming things to themselves. So like people, if I understand it correctly, I don't have all the details, it's, so if somebody's like owns a property that they don't live in, right? And the property's, you know, like you live in one state and your property's in another state. And these people are finding that out and then they come in and they quick claim the property you're not in a lot, right, to themselves. And nobody catches it because, and then they do like they did in Fairfield County where they sold the house and.
The
and
land.
Sold the land, built the house and.
For $1.5 million.
Suddenly somebody goes, uh-oh, there's not your land. Is that what this is all basis on?
I have some more digging to do. This was a wonderful discussion where I'm glad it went the way it did, because now I have some more questions where it sounds great on the outside, but wait, are we opening ourselves up to even additional fraud where we're giving bad actors information that is giving them, they're always, they have to come in, but making it easier for them to get that information. So Glenn's smiling because he's like,
Only because I don't know if I should raise my hand, can I make a comment?
you gotta ask the mayor.
There has been back and forth about this at the town clerk level for months, because the more you talk through it,
This building or all town clerks in general?
The big clerk conference they had.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, when you talk it through, I learned today that Harwington is having their town attorney check to see if the town is in any way liable if they offer the program and something happens and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. I mean, who would have thought of that? But I guess it's a worthy question.
Another good thing to check.
The more you open up this can of worms. And
Okay, we talked about this enough. Let's let this ride. We're not gonna vote on it, and we don't even have the funding for it, and we need a lot more information. Send it back to the town manager and do more investigation.
Table till after the budget?
Absolutely. Moving along, Ted.
Moving on to item number 11, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once. Who would like to speak? Sir?
Captain Stefan Kaczynski, North 5A, Standard Avenue. I want to congratulate Jack first. He and I have had difference of opinions over a number of years together. But he does the same thing that I did. He's a digger. He will dig and dig and dig to find information out. And that I appreciate. I give him, as we do it, I even publicly gave him the big attaboy and a pat on the back. He's good and whatnot. We're both getting older and whatnot, but I think we both have. He came up and discussed, transparency, discussion, communication. We've had a difficulty in this town for a long time with that. I'm going back now. I first applied, was with EDC. And when I first went with EDC, I was appalled. I mean, literally appalled. This is going back 10 years ago. They had no budget. They had no money. They couldn't do anything. It was all, yep, blah, 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 blah. All talk, no action. And everything else. after a long period of time, a number of years, I pounded away. I said, okay, we need to get some money into EDC. I forget the exact number, it's about $50,000-$60,000. And they hired 1 year, a consultant, and that was it, 1 year. And then the money turned out, well, I called it a selectman slush fund, or they call it a contingency fee, and the money went into that. So that was basically what happened, and it disappeared, and EDC is still the poor, they're like Oliver. A little more, sir, a little more. That's the problem. And everybody's complaining about Rollins and the streets, and then he came up with I forget who said it, the tax base. We haven't had any real industry come back into this town. It's all little things. And I'm not saying small businesses make the town, or whatever, but you can't do it and not have a significant tax base. We're coming in, pouring in some tax capital. I mean, 29% of the town's budget comes from the Highland Lake, right? And a little tangent here, I remember the road between my town, Fall River, Mass, and all the way out to the Cape was made out of concrete. That's the old Republic Grand Army Highway. They made it out of concrete. That stuff lasted for 200 years. Never mind, my aunt, Pomona, went down when I was a little boy to Washington DC to see the sights and the museums. And she came up with the one item that impressed me to anything else at the breakfast table with my dad. He says, everything in this country now, after World War II, it's called built-in obsolescence. And that includes our roads. That's what we do. We have asphalt, not concrete, asphalt. And it's built-in obsolescence. It's made to last only so long. You don't have TV repairman. You don't have refrigerators that could be disposable. Anyway, the situation is you keep going around and everybody, we need money. EDC, I wanted EDC to have money and put someone in charge 24/7, well, I say 24/7, but every day, working day, to go out there, look at the manuals, look at the magazines, look at the journal, Wall Street Journal, find those particular companies. They could be within the state, they could be out of state, they could be overseas. See if you can draw them in. Say, hey, look what we got here. We have a population that's really willing to work. And yeah, we used to be a very dynamic, mill city. I mean, we made a lot of farm implements, made a lot of hosiery for the war and everything else, and it all died away. Same thing with my hometown of Fall River, which was, a big textile. We only got one textile mill left. Everything else has been changed. And they made the mills out of granite blocks, right? So I come from I know what I'm talking about. Right now, surprisingly enough, the shipyards all around the world are going full steam trying to build enough container ships, all right, to move cargo all over. This is what runs the world, is the cargo and everything else. And I'm just like, we've kind of gotten down and boiled this thing down, and we're worried about some paved roads here. This is, we don't have a real economic development group. In fact, I'm pissed off Ted Pratt about it. One night he says, have a fire in the belly. He got pissed at me. He was really upset. He says, you don't. He says, you got no money. You can't go out there and look for businesses to bring them into town. So you don't have the fire in the belly. All right, fine. Me? Unfortunately, I'm beyond that. I'm 75 years old. I got my own problems. If I was 30 years younger, I would be hammering away to get another consultant in here, EDC, to go out searching everywhere to find businesses that would definitely come here, settle in and whatnot. We're lucky we got whatever aerospace engineering, and it's still small potatoes. They're not a big, you know, tax, I mean, they're putting in tax, and some, maybe that, but it's still small. You know, it's just like the Legitimists down there in the New Hartford area, and whatnot. We got to get raise the tax base. And until you put some money into EDC, serious money, and if you wanna go back to the $50,000-$60,000 and hire a consultant and whatnot, and send them out on the road, wherever that might be, here, Canada, Mexico, I don't care. Send them to Israel, see if you can get somebody from Israel to come over and build a plant over here.
You're at 6 minutes, so can you wrap it up?
Thank you, sir, I appreciate it. So, that's it, and again, I think Jack, for what it's worth, he did a real good job as selectman. Some people got tired of him, yeah. I didn't. I saw what Jack could do, and he dug. He really did a lot of digging to get the right information.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Go on up, Jim. Nope. Oh.
Again, Jim Rollins, Public Works Director. I just wanted to mention one quick thing that I forgot to say earlier. Tomorrow, which is Tuesday, July 16th, 5:30 here at the Town Hall, is a public information meeting regarding the lead service line inventory. And, you know, we're gonna be asking to borrow some money for that project. And the logic behind that, real quick, is if we actually borrow the money through the state revolving fund, they forgive about 75% of the cost. So this is one of those rare occasions where borrowing money actually costs you less than you know, spending outright. You know, so we can, you know, borrow the $450,000 and pay back roughly $112,000, give or take a little bit, depending on how the contracts run. But there's a public information meeting tomorrow, Town Hall, 5:30, that will go through that. And just wanted to put that out there so people remember to go and attend it. That's all, thanks.
Will you be streaming on YouTube?
I don't know.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, sure we could.
And you're moderating it, if I remember right? Okay.
So I'll add to that, so it is 450,000, and at 70%, it's 135. And it is the public hearing in the Hicks Room tomorrow at 5:30, and the vote is July 23rd, and that's gonna be at the Town Hall. And this is a no-brainer. I think everybody needs to come out and support this too, because you're gonna get 450,000, and you only have to pay back 135 at 70%, so.
And if we
We have to do
chose
this.
not to go out, we still have to spend the money.
Right.
Because it's a mandated,
Yep.
you know, or something that we need to do.
So there goes half the money we got just from selling that land. Half of it's gone already if
Yeah.
they don't do this. So this is sort of a no-brainer,
No,
without a doubt.
I agree. So I just wanted to put that back on the communications, the name of the game tonight, so I thought I'd, you know, speak of it. So that was it, thanks.
Thank you. Jack, did you want something? No. Good. Moving on to item 12, Selectmen's comments and reports. Anyone have anything?
I did until Jim came up.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, but don't forget also, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, the hearing for our budget. And let's hope it gets passed this time, because this is kind of getting ridiculous, and it's taking away too much time from our staff to do these budgets over and over again. Paul, too much time. How can he do anything else if he's always working on his budget, so.
Bill, what's the cost of one record?
I think they're about 2,500.
Yeah, that's why the one for the lead service line is gonna be here at the town hall. And the water department's gonna pay for that.
So just a couple things in closing for myself. This past week, I was happy to attend a retirement ceremony downstairs in the police department for Sergeant Kinahan. Sergeant Kevin Kinahan has been an officer in the town of Winchester for 35 years. He retires later this week. I believe it's Wednesday is his last shift, and we wish him well in his future. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the incidents that happened Saturday over the weekend in Pennsylvania. It seems that at times, our population is getting farther and farther apart, and we are forgetting that we can have differences of opinions and differences of political views, but that should not make someone our mortal enemy. So we need to take steps to ensure that we remember that at the end of the day, we're all Americans and we're all in this together, regardless of your political philosophies. That is all that I have. Troy?
Go ahead. No, you raised your hand.
A motion to adjourn.
I just was gonna remind, I hope we get a large crowd tomorrow night
Yes.
that comes out and is vocal about the budget and what they're looking for. And at least come out to get some information on what this budget is, the amount of thought and effort that's gone into it. And we as a board unanimously passed it and sent it. And we think it's a budget that we can stand behind. So hopefully we'll have a lot of public comment tomorrow night.
Taking Steve's spot, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Welcome. So,
Wonderful.
we're on.
Welcome back.
Well, no, 'cause I just, if the board can just wait for